So I've decided to make a decision, and it's a bit of a tough one, but I think ultimately it's going to be for the best for the future of, uh, I guess, my own personal growth. But I have made the decision that the last episode, episode 215 of Totally Oblivious, will be the last episode of the Totally Oblivious podcast. I talked to Alex already about this decision. He agreed that uh, this is probably the best decision to make moving forward for the growth of my own personal content creation, and also I think for himself in a way. Um, but I think the real problem comes down to there's a multitude of different reasons why I've decided to make this decision. Um, the first of which is time. Uh, though it might not seem like it, the making the podcast does take quite a bit of time out of my schedule to do. It's at least hour and a half to 2 hours of preparation and recording, and then if I want to make it actually good, like a lot of effort put into the production, that takes at least 4 hours to do. And what I've been seeing as of recent is, despite those efforts, it's not producing or growing the way that I'd like it to. And that's been a little disappointing to see. And I ultimately think there's a lot of factors that I think go into that. And I think on top of that, I don't think that the production of the show could possibly get any better than what it is now without completely changing the formula. And at that point, I feel like that would pretty much mean starting a new show to begin with. And I know this is the current format, and the way that we operate things is just a way that was fun for me and Alex to have an opportunity to talk to each other every week and share ideas and just talk about world events, which is fine. But it's just one of those things where I don't think I could make it any more entertaining than what it is now. Like, I think I reached the limit on what I could possibly do with the show. And if I did want to improve it in ways that I've thought of, I don't think that would be genuine to the show of which it started. And I don't think Alex would necessarily enjoy recording it as much anymore, because I know he likes more of the talking aspect and just BSing with the homies, which ultimately was the main reason for starting the show, was just talking with friends and getting people together to just talk about stuff that they're interested in. And I guess that's another problem too, is getting guests these days. Borderline impossible. Nobody we know lives in our hometown anymore. And on top of that, Alex is also making the plan to move, which would then put the production onto fully online recording through Discord, which we have proven is possible, and we can make a good production out of that. It's just whether or not that production, I don't think it would benefit the growth of the show, or I just don't think it'd be as good, right? Because like we could just talk through Discord, but at that point it's like I feel like we're losing that personal basis that comes with a lot of other podcasts and shows, is having that in-person conversation, where again, doing it through Discord, we would be able to get more guests, and we were able to discover that. But also at that same time, I don't see the show growing any more than just a couple people chatting all the time, which I, when you look at the sphere of what podcasts are, that's pretty much all of them. Is just a couple people talking for about an hour, and that's their entire content. Is you just talk with friends or guests for a certain amount of time, talk about their lives or news or whatever, and that's the podcast. And not only do I think it's shoehorning myself to be making that when I know I could be doing more than just making a show about just two people talking, but also, like, one thing that I talked with Alex about is the fact that there's already so many shows just like that with personalities that I think, not to say that just do it better, but let's be real, they do it better and are more recognizable, so people are automatically going to gravitate towards those rather than me and Alex, who are just two Joe schmoes. Like, you're gonna watch the Bad Friends podcast over ours because they are already established, are more funny, and can get more interesting guests on. Whereas at this point, like, I can barely get I can barely get my friends on. I can barely get Colby on, my own brother. Like, it's just not working out. Like, it really will not grow at this current pace. And I don't see myself making it grow because at the same time I feel like the passion for myself to create that sort of project is not really there anymore, because I have so many other projects that I feel like I could put more production in, and more, that same amount of time but more production in. Because with the podcast, it's an hour-long thing and it's conversational, so you can't really add too much more to that. Like, I can do the zoom ins on the faces, I can add funny music and like sound effects and screen imagery or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, that sort of production does not, it takes time, but it doesn't take the amount of like effort that I'd like to put into projects. And if I'm going to be putting 4 hours into a project, I'd like to be able to have that project be more engaging. I don't think a podcast can be that visually engaging without losing your audience to having so many like pew 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 pew, and like, unless you're making a specific kind of show, which of course, like I said, our show really wasn't that. So if I was going to change it to that, it would be a completely different show anyway. So effectively, the Totally Oblivious podcast would cease to exist regardless of what I chose to do in the future. But I just really think when it comes down to it, there's a lot more I can do than what making the weekly podcast would have to offer. And I think that's the other part that I think is a big problem, is it is a podcast. Like, we can't, as much as we tried to get away from that identity, it is a podcast at the end of the day. And I feel like podcast is like a bad term now. Like, you can't call something a podcast without having a couple eyebrows raised. It's like, podcaster, you're a podcaster. Like, that's a big problem, I think. And that's just the way that the industry went. Everybody kind of hopped on that train. Everybody and their mom, if you had a microphone and a camera, you were like, I could be a podcaster. So I do think that's another problem in terms of just the growth of the show, is me and Alex are very late to the game. And by the time we were going to be picking up steam is when a lot of other podcasts kind of tarnished the term of podcast for many other people who had shows like ours. And I just don't think, I think at that point, like, you could see in the past couple years, like, podcasting was kind of like a trend. Like everybody started one, everybody tried it. Ultimately, the ones who had the production value were going to be the ones who succeeded. We don't have that production value. Clearly, we're both very early on in our careers. Even Alex, who's been at it for 7 years now, I still think he's very early on in his career. He's expressed to me that he has a lot that he's still figuring out as a content creator, and I think that's ultimately the goal of any artist, which content creators are artists, is you want to constantly evolve the product that you're making. And you see it with Alex's productions. He wants to evolve his production. He wants to create new stuff even on this channel. Like we did the podcast for 2 years, and then I was like, I want to do other stuff. I made a little mini film. I made gaming content, streaming, stuff like that. I want to constantly evolve the way I did things. And ultimately, I think the initial show, Totally Oblivious, was naturally going to have to fall to the wayside because those other things I could put a lot more production value and creativity into, whereas the Totally Oblivious podcast, you really can't, given the nature of what a podcast is. And so at that point, it's just, I put a lot of thought this week since we published the last episode. And despite the fact that I think me and Alex, we're having fun, we're doing everything right, we're making content, it's just ultimately, I think it reached a point that I don't think I could possibly make it any better than what it is now. And as somebody who likes to constantly improve and create new stuff, that was kind of a realization that stuck to me and made me think, man, I think that's a clear sign to move on, is when you reach a point that you can't improve upon something anymore. And while it is hard to say goodbye to a project that I've been working on for the last 4 years now, and I even took that break and really started to fall in love with the idea of content creation again. But then 7 episodes in, it was just that realization that it's like, man, this isn't going anywhere. This isn't growing. I'm not growing. Like, I can perfect that formula, but it doesn't matter if that formula is not great to begin with. Like, it's not gonna produce anything ever. And if that's not gonna produce anything ever, then I don't see it ever evolving ever. So at that point, I think I could put my efforts elsewhere. And on that note, I am not going to stop making content on this channel. That is the last thing I plan to do. I'm constantly planning on making new stuff. I want to diversify the stuff I make on this channel. And I ultimately want to give you guys, the audience, something more to enjoy. Like, I've heard feedback from people who do keep up on stuff, and I think it's all valid. And ultimately, given their feedback, the only logical solution to implement their ideas would be to end the Totally Oblivious podcast and put these efforts into other projects. Like, I have other like short film ideas, skits, even the gaming content I feel like I could do a lot more with and make more entertaining content value than what I could do with the hour-long podcast episodes. And this doesn't mean that like content creation with Alex is dead. Like, we're going to collab on a lot of stuff. We've already talked about this. We want to do streaming collabs. We want to do more video collabs, like the Dragon Ball Xenoverse stuff that we're starting to put out now, or at least I'm starting to put out right now. The Xenoverse replay through was definitely a very fun experience, and another lesson for me in the idea of increasing my video production because it evolved the idea of how I can make something better. Like, I'm starting to realize how I can make more entertaining gaming content. Where on the flip side, the podcast, I could try to trim it down as much as I can, but at some point, we're going to lose the plot of the conversation and that episode will lose value over time, which I think is a detriment and a disservice to the ideas and topics that me and Alex do end up talking about. And on that note, I do think in some way, shape, or form that Totally Oblivious will stay alive in the future. As I did express to Alex, in our live streams that we plan on having in the future, that we could just have chatting live streams where we talk about random stuff. And I think that's more of a service to both ourselves and the audience for those who want to hear these more long-winded discussions, that they can tune into the stream at any time and listen to what we have to say. Or, like, it just gives more opportunity for us to grow and more opportunities for the viewers like yourselves to experience content in a way that I think is more accessible. Because at the end of the day, like, podcast hour long every week, like, we can only do so much. And I think that was also a big thing, a big sign of our decline, was like in the past year, because the news has been so terrible and consistently terrible, me and Alex were trying to avoid news. But at that same time, we're like, okay, so what are we going to talk about this week if we're not talking about the news? So it was a constant scramble for looking for topics. And it's like, we don't have a solution. We don't have a topic this week. So then there was going to be episodes that were just like nothing. And I know Colby suggested turning podcast into a monthly production, which I think could work. But at the same time, if we're talking news and stuff, by the time that monthly production comes out, it's going to be already outdated. So I think ultimately, if we are going to continue having like the discussions that we had for Totally Oblivious, that the solution moving forward would be just doing a live stream, and we just talk through a live stream, be like, yeah, so anyway, important stuff happened this week, or yeah, we just wanted to sit and chat with the viewer. And that's, I think, really something that I'd like to do more. Is, like I said, it's been hard to get guests because nobody lives here. But if we do live streams, essentially anybody in the audience is a guest. Like, you could put your input into the live chat and we could talk about that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that me and Alex have to be in the same room. And on top of that, we don't even necessarily just have to be sitting and chatting. We could be gaming and chatting and doing stuff like that. Because we did attempt that with the show. We did the Monster Hunter podcast and we did the Helldivers podcast and the Fly Night stuff. And it was fun for us to create that and work through it. But then at the same time, once I got to the post-production and ultimately the release of those, I don't think it translated as well as I would have hoped, because we were so focused on the game. It was less of a podcast and more of just a gaming session. So I think that would be another benefit of us just doing live streams like that, is we can do both. We can just have these topics of discussion and chat about them. And then if we don't want to do those topics of discussion, we can just play the game and people can just interact with us while we play the game. Like, it's just one of those things where it's just like a snowball of realizations that have been happening in the past couple months, maybe even past couple years, that it's just, man, Totally Oblivious, great idea, great experience, gave me a lot of opportunity and taught me a lot about the content creation side of things. But I think, despite the fact that we said we could do it forever, I think it would be a disservice to ourselves to operate that show as it is forever, because I don't think it's ever going to get better than what it is now. So ultimately, Totally Oblivious is dying, but what its corpse will do is nourish the soil for future productions to grow, right? Because I think the industry for long form content is going towards streaming. People love live streams. That's what content creators are doing. And so if we could do a couple live streams every now and then, I think that would benefit both myself and Alex. And I think we'd have more fun doing that. And then that would give time for projects like my Xenoverse playthrough, or even other projects. Like if I want to do another night in the park or adjacent type video, just making more productions, that would make that a lot easier, because if we live stream us just chit chatting, then I have more time to focus on those projects or other projects that I have had in mind that I just never have time for. So while it was hard to make this decision, like it's good knowing that making this decision is giving me the chance to do more. That, like, I'm hoping I can make more quality content that people will enjoy on the channel. And so I know I probably rambled on long enough about the decision. And for all of you who actually did listen for car rides to wherever, or just had us playing in the background, I do apologize. That is going to cease. I think probably gonna also have to do some subscription cancellations to save myself some money, which benefit to me, but also means content won't be arriving on the Spotify or elsewhere. I don't even remember where else to post to, but Spotify listeners, I do apologize. Everything is going to be fully on YouTube now. And that just goes with the production. Of course, you understand. Again, I'm rambling, but ultimately, I just want to streamline things to the point that I can make more high quality content. It's not that channel's dying. It's not my content's dying. It's just this little piece is just going to have to be part of the past. And in a way, it's a bit of a beautiful thing. It's a nice send off. Could we have had a more proper send off? Sure. But I think having this opportunity to tell my thoughts to you myself, I think is the best solution. And I think moving forward, we're going to be seeing more quality stuff. And I hope you guys stick around for the ride. I hope you guys continue to support the channel and both mine and Alex's endeavors in the future. So yeah, anyway, that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna have more, like I said, more content to come. Dragon Ball Xenoverse, that's gonna be pretty consistent coming out still. Also hoping to get more projects both on YouTube and outside of YouTube going on. But yeah, for now, that's pretty much it. So stay tuned for whatever comes next, and I'll be sure to do more updates like this on life stuff, and maybe even, like I said, streaming. Just I'll make sure to keep everybody updated on kind of what the plans are for the future. But anyway, like I said, I'm rambling. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.